Hey guys, tonight we are going to slip back in time, not to a grand battlefield or a royal court, but to a quiet, sun-dappled corner of a medieval English manor. Imagine the air, thick with the smell of damp earth, wild thyme, and the sweet, resinous scent of beeswax. There's a low, gentle hum all around you, a sound that is both your livelihood and your constant, calming companion. This is your world. Now, as a gentle reality check, you'd probably last about 3 days here before complaining about the lack of Wi-Fi and the fact that your only protective gear against thousands of tiny, flying specks of fury is a linen cloth and an optimistic attitude. It was a simpler time, but not necessarily an easier one. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Your support, quiet as it is, helps this channel immensely. And as always, I'd love to see where and when you're listening from, so feel free to post your city and local time in the comments. It's always a quiet thrill to see this community stretching across the globe. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The light is fading. You can feel the day's warmth seeping out of the ground as you trudge along the narrow, muddy track that passes for a path. Your feet, wrapped in simple leather-turned shoes, squelch softly in the damp soil. The air is cooling, carrying the scent of wood smoke from the manor's kitchens and the distant, lowing sound of cattle being brought in for the night. You are not the lord of this manor. You are not a knight, a priest, or even a skilled mason. You are something quieter, something more attuned to the rhythms of the natural world. You are the beekeeper, the apiarist. Your tunic, a rough garment of undyed wool, feels coarse against your skin, but it's durable. It has to be. It will likely outlast you, a concept completely alien to our modern world of fast fashion. This single piece of clothing is your work uniform, your formal wear, and probably your pajamas, all rolled into one. You pull the hood up slightly as a soft evening breeze whispers through the trees lining your path. Your destination isn't the bustling hall or the noisy barracks. It's a secluded, peaceful enclosure on the south-facing side of the manor's largest garden, your apiary. Or, as it's more commonly known, the bee garth. This isn't just any patch of land. It's been carefully chosen. It's sheltered from the harsh north winds by a thick, high stone wall, a luxury on this manor. On its other sides, a well-maintained wattle fence, woven from hazel branches and daubed with clay, keeps out the curious noses of livestock and the clumsy feet of children. The location is a delicate balance, close enough to the manor for protection and convenience, but far enough away that an agitated swarm won't disrupt the lady of the manor's afternoon stroll in the rose garden. Your job exists on this quiet periphery, essential but unobtrusive. Your importance, however, is not to be underestimated. While you might be a simple cotter, holding a small plot of land in exchange for your labor, your specialized skill elevates you. Your role as a melitarius, or beekeeper, was significant enough to be recorded in the Great Doomsday Book of 1086, the comprehensive survey of England ordered by William the Conqueror. To be named in that book means your work mattered. It means you produced something so valuable that the king himself needed to know exactly how much of it was being made, and where. That value comes from two things: honey, the primary sweetener of the age, and wax, the priceless fuel for the purest light. You reach the simple wooden gate of the bee garth and lift the latch. Inside, the air feels different, warmer, more fragrant. This is your domain. Along the stone wall, you see one of the features that makes this apiary so special: a row of bee bowls. These are arched recesses, like small, hollowed-out shelves, built directly into the fabric of the wall itself. Each one is designed to perfectly shelter a single straw beehive, a skep, from the worst of the rain and wind. They are prime real estate for a colony, little bee condos offering 5-star protection. Not all apiaries have them. Many beekeepers have to make do with open-sided sheds called bee houses, or simply place their skeps on wooden stools. But this manor's lord understood the value of his bees, and invested in this permanent, elegant solution. Historians still argue whether the title of apiarist designated a full-time, specialized profession or if it was simply a secondary title for a peasant who happened to have a knack for bees. Looking at your little kingdom, you feel it's a bit of both. Your hands are calloused from other work on the manor's domain, but your mind is consumed by the intricate world of your colonies. You are responsible for their health, their protection, and their productivity. Their success is your success, measured in gallons of golden honey and pounds of pure, clean beeswax that will light the altar of the local church. As you stand here, in the quiet hum of your apiary, you are more than just a laborer. You are a custodian of sweetness and light in a world that often has too little of either. But that sweetness and light requires a home, a vessel. And as you gaze across your small domain, you see that several of your bee bowls sit empty, their cool, dark recesses waiting for new occupants. A successful apiary is a growing one, and you have plans to expand. This means you need more hives. Not hives that you can order from a catalog, delivered in a flat-packed box with a set of cryptic instructions. No, you must create the home for your bees with your own two hands, from materials gathered from the land around you. It is time to weave a skep. You leave the quiet sanctuary of the bee garth and head towards a small, dry shed where the best of last year's straw is stored. You need the longest, strongest, most unbroken stalks of rye or wheat, saved specifically for this purpose. The straw must be perfectly dry, free of mold or mildew, its golden color a promise of a sturdy and weatherproof home. You gather a large armful, its scent dusty and sweet, like stored sunshine. But the straw is only the skeleton of the skep. It needs something to bind it together, to give it strength and shape. For this, you head to the edge of the woods, to the unruly tangle of brambles that grow there. This is a task that teaches a deep and personal respect for thorns. With a small, sharp knife, you carefully select long, pliable runners of blackberry vine. You slice them away from the main bush, handling them with the caution of someone who has learned the hard way. Back in the yard, you begin the patient work of stripping them, removing every single thorn and leaf until you are left with a smooth, flexible withe. These withes are then coiled and left to soak in a wooden bucket of water, which makes them pliable and less likely to snap as you work them. This is slow, deliberate work. There is no rushing this process. Each step is essential to the final product. With your pile of golden straw and your coils of damp, dark bramble, you find a comfortable spot on a low, three-legged stool. The sun is warm on your back. You take a tool from a leather pouch at your belt. It's an awl, a sharp-pointed instrument, but it's not made of iron. It's carved from the leg bone of a sheep, polished smooth by years of use. This simple tool, a piece of a once-living animal, will help you guide the binder through the dense straw. You take a thick hank of straw, a wisp, and begin to coil it, tucking the ends in, forming a small, tight disc. This is the crown of the skep, the very top of the dome. Now, the rhythm begins. It's a rhythm that lives in your hands, a form of knowledge passed down not in books, but through observation and practice. You hold the straw coil in one hand, and with the other, you take a soaked bramble strip. You wrap it tightly around the wisp of straw, pulling it taut. Then, you take your bone awl, its point cool and smooth, and you push it through the previous coil of straw, creating a small channel. You thread the end of the bramble through this hole, pulling it tight to lash the new coil to the one before it. Wrap, pierce, thread, and pull. Over and over. It's the original DIY project, only there's no 10-minute video tutorial to help you if you mess up the tension. Your world shrinks to the feel of the straw, the steady pressure of the binding, the soft scraping sound of the awl. A bee, heavy with pollen, buzzes lazily past your ear, a gentle reminder of the purpose of your work. As you add more straw and continue your patient coiling, the skep begins to take shape. First a small dome, then widening out into the classic, bell-like form. The shape is no accident. It's a masterpiece of low-tech engineering, designed to be spacious inside while encouraging the bees to build their comb downwards, and its domed top ensures that rain will run off the tightly woven straw rather than seeping in. Historians and archaeologists still argue whether the regional variations in skep shape, the taller, more conical skeps found in some parts of the country versus the rounder, flatter versions elsewhere, were due to mere artistic preference, ingrained local tradition, or a more sophisticated, intuitive understanding of how different shapes might affect a colony's ventilation and winter survival. As you work, you follow the tradition you were taught, a gentle, rounded dome that feels right in your hands and has always produced strong, healthy colonies. After a few hours, your back aches and your fingers are raw, but a new home stands before you. You trim the stray ends of straw and run your hand over the tightly wound coils. It's sturdy, surprisingly light, and smells wonderfully of dry fields and damp earth. Near the bottom, you've carefully woven a small, round opening, the end hole, just large enough for 2 or 3 bees to pass through at once. A small entrance is easier for the colony to defend. You carry the finished skep back to the bee garth, its form a golden echo of the sun. You place it carefully within one of the empty stone bee bowls. It sits there, a perfect, empty vessel, a silent invitation. It is a house waiting for a family, a promise of future sweetness. A promise is not a pot of honey, and a house is not a home until it is lived in. The beautiful, empty skep sitting in the stone bowl is a job half done. Now comes the part that requires less craft and more luck, patience, and a deep, intuitive connection to the world beyond the manor walls. You must find bees. You can't simply buy a starter colony. You must go out and acquire a wild swarm, essentially convincing a migrating family to accept your humble offering of a woven straw house. It's the medieval equivalent of finding a fully furnished apartment for rent with the first month free. You just have to persuade the new tenants to sign the lease. So, for the next few days, you become a listener. As you go about your other chores, a part of your attention is always tuned to the air, listening for a change in the usual drone of the world. You're listening for the sound of a swarm in flight, a deep, resonant hum that is much louder and more purposeful than the buzz of foraging bees. It's a sound that can fill the sky, a living cloud moving with a single mind. Sometimes you practice the art of bee lining, capturing a single forager in a small wooden box, releasing it, and patiently tracking its direct flight path back towards its nest. But today, you will rely on your ears. And then you hear it. It starts as a low thrumming, almost a vibration in your chest, coming from the direction of the old woods that border the manor's fallow fields. You down your tools and head towards the sound. As you get closer, the hum grows into a roar, a sound of immense but controlled power that blots out the birdsong. You walk into the dappled shade of the oak trees, and you see it. The swarm has settled. On the low-hanging branch of an ancient apple tree, a great, dark, shifting cluster of life hangs like a strange, living fruit. It is a breathtaking sight. Tens of thousands of bees, clinging to one another, form a dense, teardrop-shaped mass around their queen, who rests somewhere deep inside. The air is thick with their scent and the energy of their movement, yet they are strangely calm, their collective belly full of honey from their old home, waiting for their scouts to return with news of a suitable new one. This is the moment for a bit of practical magic. From a pouch, you take out a small metal pot and a smooth, heavy stone, the tools of tanging. You begin to strike the pot with the stone, creating a loud, rhythmic, clanging noise. Clang, clang, clang. It's a racket that would likely scare off a pack of wolves, but it is believed to do one of two things to bees. The old folk wisdom says the noise mimics thunder, encouraging the swarm to settle quickly, believing a storm is coming. The more practical reason, however, is one of law. Historians still debate the true purpose of tanging. Was it a genuine, superstitious ritual intended to mystically influence the bee's behavior? Or was it a purely secular and legal act, a loud, public declaration to anyone within earshot that you have found this swarm, it is now your property, and they should keep their distance? In truth, it's probably both. A little bit of magic to secure the bees, and a lot of noise to secure your legal claim to them. Now for the capture itself. You approach the humming cluster slowly, with calm, deliberate movements. You've brought the new skep with you. You unwrap the cloth from its opening and rub the inside with a small lump of honeycomb you saved from the last harvest. The scent of familiar wax and honey is a powerful lure. You are sending a clear message. This is a good place, a safe place, a place of plenty. Taking a deep breath, you hold the skep upside down, directly beneath the living chandelier of bees. Then, with one swift, decisive, upward jolt against the branch, you dislodge them. For a breathtaking second, the world dissolves into a storm of wings as thousands of bees fall like a soft, heavy rain into the basket. You are momentarily holding a straw skep that weighs far more than it should and hums with the energy of a contained thunderstorm. It's a uniquely thrilling and terrifying feeling, like holding a furry, buzzing lightning bolt. You immediately, but gently, turn the skep right side up and place it on a large linen cloth you've spread on the ground beneath the branch. A few thousand bees still fly in a confused cloud around you, but you remain still. Their anchor, their queen, is almost certainly inside that skep. And where the queen goes, the colony will follow. You watch as the bees begin to organize themselves, marching in a steady, orderly procession into the small entrance hole of their new home. It's a slow, mesmerizing process. You will wait here until dusk, when the air cools and the last of the scout bees have returned and joined the colony inside. Only then, when the entire family is home, will you gently tie the corners of the cloth over the skep, lift the heavy, humming bundle, and begin the slow, careful walk back to the manor's bee garth. Tonight, another bee bowl will have an occupant. You have not just built a home, you have filled it with life. The journey back to the bee garth is a slow, careful procession. The skep is heavy in your arms, not just with the physical weight of the bees and the honey they carry, but with the weight of potential. You walk with a deliberate, shuffling gait to avoid jostling the new colony, your ears filled with the contained roar of their humming. The sound is a constant reminder that you are carrying a living, breathing organism, a superorganism with its own moods and intentions. As you pass a fellow laborer heading home from the fields, he gives you a wide berth and a respectful nod. He's not just making way for you, he's making way for the precious and slightly dangerous cargo you carry. You finally reach the stone-walled sanctuary of your apiary. With the gentle care of a mother laying a babe in a crib, you place the humming skep into the empty bee bowl you prepared earlier. The bees inside, sensing the stability and darkness, begin to quiet down. You can feel the vibration through the straw lessening, the roar softening to a contented purr. You stand back, filled with a deep sense of satisfaction. You have done it. This new family is yours. Or is it? This is where your world becomes quietly complicated. The feeling of ownership is strong in your heart, but the law of the land, and the law of nature, has a more nuanced view. In the eyes of the law, your bees are considered forae natura, meaning wild by nature. They are not like a cow or a sheep, which are domesticated and clearly someone's property. Bees, even when settled in your skep, retain their wild spirit and a legal status to match. They are yours only so long as you can keep them in your possession. The moment they issue a new swarm and leave your apiary, your ownership becomes conditional. It rests entirely on the ancient law of pursuit. You have the right to follow your swarm, even if it settles on your neighbor's land. You can enter his property to reclaim what is yours, but only if you have kept them in sight and demonstrated your intent to recapture them. This is where the tanging comes back into play. That clanging of pot and stone was your public broadcast, your legal affidavit shouted into the wind. These bees are mine. I am in pursuit. If you were to lose sight of them, or give up the chase, your claim would evaporate. The swarm would then belong to whoever finds them and hives them first. It's a bit like a low-speed police chase, but with more buzzing and a much higher chance of getting stung for your efforts. In some lands, like Old Ireland, these rules were codified with incredible detail. The ancient Brian laws contained a whole section, the Beekeeper or bee judgments, dedicated to the legal complexities of beekeeping. These laws were astonishingly specific, outlining how the honey should be divided if a hive was found in a tree on a property line, with shares for the finder and the owners of the 4 nearest farms. They even laid out the fines for bee stings, distinguishing between a sting where the person swelled up and one where they didn't. Your own local manorial court is not nearly so detailed, but the core principle remains. Bees are a wild thing, tenuously held. Legal historians continue to debate how rigorously these written laws were enforced in the day-to-day life of a village. Were disputes over swarms settled by a reeve consulting a dusty legal text, or more often by local custom, a heated argument, and perhaps the threat of a stout stick? You suspect it's the latter, which is why maintaining good relationships with your neighbors is almost as important as maintaining the health of your hives. And then there is the largest, most significant claim of all, that of the Lord. You may have the right to the bees over your neighbor, but you are still a tenant on the Lord's land. The bee garth, the shed for your straw, the very ground beneath your feet belongs to him. In return for this land and his protection, you owe him a portion of your produce. This is your food rent. While you may keep some honey for your own family, the vast majority of the sweet harvest, and nearly all of the priceless beeswax, is destined for the manor house. He provides the protection, and you provide the honey. It seems like a fair trade, especially when you're the one without a castle. So as you stand there in the twilight, watching the entrance of the new hive, you understand the complex web of ownership you inhabit. The bees are not truly yours. You are their keeper, their custodian, their partner. It's a rental agreement, not a deed of ownership. a pact you have with a queen and 20,000 of her closest relatives. You give them a home and protect them from harm, and in return, they give you a portion of their golden treasure, which you, in turn, give to the Lord. Your satisfaction is not in ownership, but in the skill of your stewardship, and in the quiet hum that tells you the new family has accepted their new home. The feeling of stewardship follows you to your straw mattress and greets you again with the dawn. The sun, a pale disk in the misty morning sky, calls you to your duties. The life of a beekeeper is not measured in single, dramatic events like a swarm captured, but in a slow, revolving circle of tasks dictated by the seasons. Your work is a quiet dance with the sun, the rain, and the flowers. Your calendar is not made of parchment and ink, but of blooming clover and falling leaves. In the early spring, as the last of the winter chill grudgingly releases its grip on the land, your work is one of gentle observation. You approach the apiary with a sense of quiet hope. The first sign of life is a relief. On a surprisingly warm afternoon, you'll see the bees undertaking their cleansing flights, their first foray out of the hive in months, a necessary act of bee hygiene. Your first task is not to tear the hive open, but simply to heft it. You place your hands on either side of a skep, bend your knees, and lift it just an inch off its stand. It's a delicate art. Too much of a jolt and you've angered the residents. Too little and you've learned nothing. It's like trying to figure out what's in a wrapped gift by shaking it, if the gift could get angry and fly out to sting you. The weight tells you everything. If it is heavy, you breathe a sigh of relief. The colony has made it through the winter with plenty of honey stores. If it feels perilously light, a knot of worry tightens in your stomach. They are close to starvation. In this case, you must feed them. You mix a small amount of your own precious store of honey with a little water, creating a thin, sweet syrup. You pour it into a shallow wooden dish and place it near the entrance of the struggling hive. It feels like a humble offering, a prayer for their survival. You are giving back a little of the sweetness they gave you last year, an investment in the year to come. As spring deepens into the long, warm days of summer, the apiary transforms. The gentle hum becomes a constant, purposeful roar. This is the time of the honey flow. The fields and hedgerows are bursting with the white and pink blossoms of clover, the purple flowers of thyme, and 100 other wildflowers, each offering up its tiny droplet of nectar. Your bees are a frantic army of foragers, pouring in and out of the skeps, their legs heavy with brightly colored pollen. Your job now is mostly to stay out of the way and to be vigilant. A strong, booming colony will quickly fill its home and begin to think about its sacred duty, swarming. Your summer is spent listening, watching, and being ready at a moment's notice to capture a new swarm, as you did before. Your role is that of a frantic landlord, trying to build an extension overnight because your tenants have suddenly decided to have 20,000 babies and are threatening to move out. Occasionally, for a particularly strong colony, you might try to forestall this by giving them more space. You might perform a nadir, carefully lifting the entire skep and placing a small, woven straw ring called an eek underneath it. This adds a few precious inches of extra space at the bottom, sometimes tricking the colony into thinking they have more room than they do, delaying their urge to swarm. It's a sophisticated move for a beekeeper of this time, a trade secret almost. Then, as the days begin to shorten and a golden light settles over the land, the mood shifts again. This is late summer and early autumn, the time of harvest. The frantic work of nectar gathering slows. The drones, the male bees, are unceremoniously evicted from the hive by the workers, their purpose served. You watch the activity at the entrance, judging the right moment to take your share, and the Lord's. Finally, winter approaches. The last of the ivy blossoms have faded, and a sharp bite returns to the air. Your final, crucial task is to prepare the colonies for the long cold. You ensure each skep is heavy with honey. You move them to the most sheltered part of the apiary, turning their entrances away from the prevailing wind. You might narrow the entrance holes with a small plug of clay or wood, leaving only a tiny gap for ventilation, just enough to deter opportunistic mice from seeking a warm, sweet-smelling winter nest. You do everything you can to make them cozy, essentially tucking them in for a 4-month nap, hoping they don't have any nightmares involving woodpeckers or starvation. Historians and historical apiarists still debate the average winter survival rates for colonies in simple skeps. Without modern medicines to treat disease, and with the ever-present threat of a long, hard winter, how many of these families would you expect to lose by spring? Was a 50% loss considered a disaster, or just a sad, expected reality of the beekeeper's year? As you look over your quiet, sleeping apiary, you know that despite your best efforts, some may not see the spring. It is a sobering thought that keeps you humble. Your work is a partnership, and sometimes, even the best partners can't win against the cold. The cold is not the only adversary. Your stewardship is a year-round vigil against a host of threats, none of them as grand as a dragon or a marauding army, but in their own way, just as dangerous to the delicate life of the colony. Your calm, watchful presence in the apiary is the first and most important line of defense. You are the guardian at the gate, and the enemies are many, varied, and often incredibly small. The most insidious of these is the wax moth. It is a quiet, creeping plague, a foe that attacks from within. You don't often see the small, gray, nocturnal moth itself, but you learn to recognize the heartbreaking signs of its presence. Its larvae, tiny white grubs, are the true enemy. They hatch in the darkness of the hive and begin to tunnel through the precious comb, eating everything in their path: stored pollen, honey, and the wax itself. They leave behind a trail of destruction, a messy network of silken tunnels and foul-smelling debris. The wax moth is the worst kind of houseguest. It arrives uninvited, its children eat you out of house and home, and they leave a sticky, silky mess everywhere. On your regular inspections, you look for this webbing near the entrance or for small, dark specks of larval waste on the hive's floorboard. A strong, populous colony can often manage the problem themselves, but a weaker hive can be completely overwhelmed, eventually absconding and leaving behind a ghostly ruin of web-choked, destroyed comb. Then there is the threat of the mouse, particularly in the autumn and winter. As the air chills, a warm, dry beehive filled with energy-rich honey becomes an irresistible winter residence for a small field mouse. Finding a mouse has taken up lodging in your skep is like discovering a tiny, furry vandal has thrown an all-night party in your pantry while the owners were asleep. It will chew through the delicate comb to make its nest, foul the hive, and disturb the dormant winter cluster of bees, causing them to consume their vital honey stores far too quickly. This is why you narrow the entrances in the autumn, making them just large enough for a bee, but too small for a mouse's skull. The threats also come from the air. The sharp, sudden drumming of a great spotted woodpecker against the side of a tree is a common woodland sound, but when you hear it near your apiary, your head snaps up. While your woven skeps offer less of a purchase than a hollow tree, a determined woodpecker can still do damage, seeking the protein-rich bee larvae, the grubs, nestled within the comb. But there are more subtle assassins among the birds. You've learned to watch the smaller ones, like the tits that flit about in the nearby trees. Some have learned a clever and infuriating trick. They will land near the skep's entrance and tap on it with their beaks. This tapping provokes a guard bee to emerge to investigate the disturbance, at which point the bird snatches it and flies off with its meal. It's a tiny, private tragedy, repeated over and over, that can weaken a colony's defenses over time. And of course, there are the insect wars. In the late summer, as nectar sources become scarce, wasps and hornets become bold and aggressive. They are the local street gang, always lurking, looking for an easy score. You can often see them hovering near the entrances, testing the defenses. A strong hive will post a formidable guard, a phalanx of determined bees that will grapple with the invaders, often sacrificing themselves to repel the attack. You watch these tiny, epic battles at the hive's doorstep, and you help by ensuring the entrance is small and easily defensible. A trail of ants, likewise, is a sign of a slow invasion that you must trace back to its source, a sign of some small weakness in the hive's integrity. Agricultural historians and entomologists still debate how much a beekeeper of your time truly understood about the life cycles of these pests. Did you recognize the wax moth as a specific species, or was its destruction simply seen as a mysterious sickness, a corruption that could befall a hive? Your understanding is based not on science, but on simple, hard-won observation. You know that cleanliness, strength, and vigilance are the only medicines you can offer your colonies. You are their protector, their watchman, their giant, slow-moving ally in a world filled with creatures that see your precious hives not as a home, but as a larder. And your observations, filtered through the wisdom of the ancients and the folklore of your village, have built a picture of the world inside the skep that is both beautiful and, to modern eyes, fantastically wrong. Your understanding is not one of biology, but of monarchy. To you, the hive is not a colony. It is a kingdom, A perfect, miniature reflection of the best parts of your own human world, ruled by a wise and noble king. You have never heard of a queen bee. The very idea would sound absurd, a violation of the natural order of things. Every piece of ancient wisdom, passed down from the Romans like Virgil and Pliny, speaks of the king bee. You believe with absolute certainty that the single, large, majestic bee that is the heart of the hive is male. You see him as a wise and benevolent ruler, a tiny Charlemagne in a fuzzy coat, directing his subjects with a quiet authority. You believe he is larger, more handsome than the others, and that he is born without a sting, for a king has no need to engage in the dirty work of fighting. His loyal subjects would die for him first. The tens of thousands of worker bees are his devoted, industrious people. You see them as models of virtue. They are tirelessly hardworking, chaste, and fiercely loyal to their sovereign. You watch them and see a perfect society, a moral example for humankind. The drones, those larger, lumbering bees you see in the summer, are the king's lazy retinue of soldiers or courtiers. You watch them being driven from the hive in the autumn to die, and you nod with understanding. The kingdom has no budget for idle mouths during the lean winter months. Their service is no longer required. You have no idea that the king is in fact a queen, that the workers are all her sterile daughters, and the drones are her potential mates. And it is probably for the best. The truth is far less relaxing and orderly than the beautiful fiction you believe. Your understanding of the bees' work is just as charmingly flawed. You do not know that they produce wax from tiny glands on their own bodies. You believe, as the old writers taught, that they scrape it from the sticky buds of willow and poplar trees, or gather it like pollen from the hearts of flowers. You see them on a flower, and in your mind's eye, they are delicately gathering the materials to build their perfect, hexagonal city. And the honey? Honey is a miracle, a gift from God that the bees are merely privileged to collect. You believe that honey is a form of celestial dew, a sweet mist that falls from the heavens at dawn and settles upon the leaves and flowers. The bees, waking early, are simply gathering this divine nectar before the sun can burn it away. The idea that honey is a far more regurgitated and processed substance would seem like blasphemy. To you, it is pure, a taste of heaven brought to earth, which only enhances its value as both food and medicine. It's a far more romantic explanation than the complex reality, which involves bee enzymes and a lot of enthusiastic fanning. Historians of science still debate how much of this bee lore was derived directly from classical texts, painstakingly copied by monks and preserved in monastery libraries, and how much was simply homegrown peasant folklore, created from generations of earnest but mistaken observation. When you share a piece of wisdom with a younger boy from the village, are you unknowingly paraphrasing the Roman writer Varro, or are you simply repeating the exact same thing your grandfather once told you in this very bee garth? The two streams of knowledge have trickled down through the centuries and merged into one, and it is the river you drink from. This vision of the hive as a virtuous kingdom makes your job more than just animal husbandry. You are the steward of a tiny, buzzing morality play. The bees' loyalty, their work ethic, their cleanliness. These are all lessons held up as examples in church sermons. The hive is a divine blueprint for the perfect Christian society, and you are its earthly guardian. As you watch a stream of foragers returning in the late afternoon, their legs laden with pollen, you don't just see livestock. You see thousands of tiny, winged subjects, working in perfect harmony for their king and their kingdom, and you feel a sense of profound peace. Their world makes sense. It is orderly, purposeful, and good. But this peace, this perfect, humming order, has a price. And as the summer wanes and the last of the clover blossoms turn brown, you know with a heavy heart that the time is coming for the harvest. The honey flow is over. The bees have spent months tirelessly filling their home with a treasure of liquid gold, and now the lord of the manor requires his share. And your share. This is the great, sad turning point of the beekeeper's year, the moment when your role shifts from guardian to executioner. The design of the skep, so perfect for sheltering the colony, is also its doom. The bees attach their delicate wax combs directly to the inside walls of the straw dome. There is no way to remove the honey without destroying the comb. And there is no way to safely destroy the comb while tens of thousands of angry, defensive bees are guarding it. So, a terrible calculation must be made. You walk through the apiary in the cool of a late summer evening. You perform the familiar ritual of hefting the skeps one by one. But this time, your judgment is not about who needs feeding, but about who has been the most successful. The heaviest skeps, laden with a winter's worth of food, are the ones that are condemned. Their success has sealed their fate. The lightest skeps, the ones with smaller colonies and fewer stores, will be left to try and survive the winter. You are sacrificing your strongest and best, a brutal logic that feels like a betrayal of the natural order. You select 2 of your heaviest hives. The low hum coming from within them sounds less like contentment now, and more like a ticking clock. As twilight bleeds across the sky, you perform the grim task. You dig a small, shallow pit in the earth a short distance from the apiary. Into this pit, you place a piece of brimstone, a chunk of yellow, chalky sulfur, and you light it with a taper. It does not burst into flame, but smolders, releasing a thick, acrid, choking smoke. The smell stings your nostrils and catches in the back of your throat. Then, with a deep breath and a murmured apology to the bee's king, you lift one of the condemned skeps. You swiftly and smoothly place it over the smoldering pit. The bees, sensing the noxious fumes, erupt in a brief, panicked roar. But the sulfur dioxide gas is swift. Within a minute, the panicked roar fades. Within 2, there is only silence. A profound, unnatural silence where a vibrant hum existed only moments before. The life of the colony, the tiny, perfect kingdom you so admired, has been extinguished. You wait another few minutes before lifting the now silent skep. It feels just as heavy as before, but it is a dead weight now, a treasure locked inside a tomb. There is another way, a method known as driving the bees. It is a more difficult art, one requiring immense skill and patience. For the second condemned hive, you decide to try. You turn the full skep upside down, its open bottom facing the sky. You then place an empty skep on top of it, mouth to mouth, and wrap a cloth around the join to create a dark tunnel between them. Then, you begin to drum. Using your hands or 2 small sticks, you tap a steady, relentless rhythm on the sides of the full, upside-down hive. Tap, 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 tap. The bees inside hate the vibration and the noise. Seeking to escape, their natural instinct is to move upwards, into the darkness. Slowly, miraculously, a procession begins. The bees start to drive, marching up out of their old home and into the new, empty one. It can take a long time, but eventually, if you are lucky and the queen joins the exodus, the majority of the colony will be safely in the new skep, leaving their honey-filled home behind for you. Historians and beekeeping reenactors still debate how common the practice of bee driving actually was. Was it a widespread, compassionate alternative to the sulfur pit, or was it a rare and difficult art, practiced only by the most skilled and patient apiarists? Did most beekeepers, under pressure to deliver a quick and complete harvest for the manor, simply resort to the faster, more efficient, and more brutal method? Standing here, with one silent hive and one buzzing with the survivors, you feel the weight of that question. You carry the 2 hives away. One is light and angry, full of the survivors you will try to nurture through the winter. The other is heavy, silent, and heartbreaking. The joy of the coming honey is muted by the cost. You have murdered the tiny king and all his loyal subjects, the very models of industry you so recently admired. It is the beekeeper's paradox. To claim the sweetness, you must partake in a profound and sorrowful act of destruction. The work of mourning is short, for the work of the harvest must begin immediately. The hive of driven, living bees has been placed in a new, sheltered spot, a small offering of honey left for them as an apology and an investment in their survival. But the silent, heavy skep cannot wait. You carry it from the apiary to a small, clean outbuilding with a hard-packed earth floor, a space reserved for the messy, sticky, and deeply satisfying work to come. The air inside is cool and smells of dust and dried herbs. By the light of a single tallow candle, you prepare your tools: a long knife, several large earthenware pots, a clean linen cloth, and a wooden mallet. You place the skep on a rough-hewn wooden table. The first step is to break apart the perfect city within. You take your knife and begin to cut the combs from the inner walls of the skep. The sound is a soft, crisp tearing, the sound of wax yielding. You pull out the first slab of comb. It is a breathtaking architecture of perfect hexagons, heavy and dense, built in beautiful, sweeping curves that followed the dome of the skep. It is filled with honey of varying colors, from the pale gold of the early spring blossoms to the rich, dark amber of the late summer clover and thyme. After carefully shaking the comb to dislodge the last of the dead bees, a final, sad piece of housekeeping, you place it in a large wooden tub. You repeat this process, cutting and shaking, until the skep is empty and the tub is filled with a glorious, fragrant pile of honeycomb. Now, you must unmake it. You take the wooden mallet and begin to crush the comb. The initial crunch of the wax gives way to a wet, pulpy sound as the honey is released. Soon, you abandon the mallet and simply use your hands, plunging them into the sweet, sticky mass, squeezing and crushing the beautiful hexagons into a fragrant, lumpy slurry. You are now covered in honey up to your elbows. It is the sweetest, stickiest, most gloriously inefficient bath you could ever imagine. Every surface in this shed will be slightly tacky for the next month, a gentle reminder of the harvest. Once everything is thoroughly crushed, the separation begins. You suspend your linen cloth over a large, clean earthenware pot, creating a simple filter. Then, ladle by ladle, you pour the honey wax slurry into the cloth. And you wait. This is the part of the process that is the opposite of every other task on the manor. It demands that you do nothing at all but sit and watch. A single, perfect, golden drop of honey forms on the underside of the cloth. It elongates, shimmers in the candlelight, and finally falls with a soft plink into the pot below. It is followed by another, and another. A slow, steady, hypnotic rhythm of falling gold. It is a form of forced meditation, and perhaps the most peaceful part of your entire year. Some honey, like that from the heather on the moors, is famously stubborn. It is thick like a jelly and refuses to run, a property we now call thixotropy. You would simply know it as troublesome honey that requires much more squeezing and pressing to yield its treasure. But this year's honey is from the manor's fields, and it flows well. While the honey drips, you turn your attention to the wax. After most of the honey has been strained, the cloth contains a sticky, clumpy residue of wax, pollen, and other debris. This is far too valuable to waste. You scrape this mass into an iron pot filled with clean rainwater and set it over a low fire. As the water heats, the magic happens. The beeswax melts, floating to the surface as a clean, golden liquid, while the pollen, dirt, and other impurities sink to the bottom. With a large spoon, you carefully skim the pure, molten wax from the surface and pour it into shallow pottery bowls to cool. As it solidifies, it will form beautiful, round cakes of clean, fragrant beeswax, the color of the sun. Historians and food scientists still debate the purity of honey produced this way. After a simple straining through a coarse linen cloth, how much pollen, dust, or microscopic bits of bee remained? Was the honey consumed in a state we would now celebrate as raw and unfiltered? And was this quality prized for its health benefits, or was it simply an unavoidable consequence of the technology available? Looking at the thick, golden liquid pooling in your pot, rich with the scent of 1,000 flowers, you don't worry about such things. It is pure, it is sweet, and it is yours. At the end of a long night, you have two treasures, a large pot of liquid gold, and several round cakes of solid sunlight. Word count: the morning after the harvest is a morning of accounting. By the cool light of dawn, you carry the large earthenware pot, now heavy with its treasure of strained honey, from the shed to the kitchens of the manor house. The air is still and clean, and the pot feels like a tangible summary of your entire summer. The manor's cook, a famously grumpy woman whose mood is only ever sweetened by sugar, or in this case, its far more accessible cousin, greets you with a rare, thin smile. For her, and for everyone else on this manor, your pot of honey is not a treat, it is a vital part of the larder. Its most important role is as a sweetener. In your world, refined sugar made from cane is a mysterious white powder spoken of in hushed tones, an almost mythical substance imported at astronomical cost from faraway lands. It is a spice for kings and crusaders. Your honey, on the other hand, is real, it's local, and it doesn't cost the equivalent of a small farm for a single spoonful. The cook will ladle it into the morning's bland oat porridge to make it palatable for the Lord's family. She will use it to glaze a wild duck or a joint of pork, giving it a crisp, caramelized skin as it turns on the spit. She will mix it into dense, heavy cakes with rye flour and spices, creating a long-for dessert that will keep for weeks. Your honey brings the rare gift of sweetness to a diet that is often relentlessly savory and bland. But its magic doesn't end there. Honey is also a preserver. Its thick, water-poor environment makes it difficult for the things that cause rot and decay to grow. Small, tart apples or wild berries gathered from the hedgerows can be submerged in a pot of honey, where they will keep for months, allowing a taste of summer's bounty in the dead of a bleak, gray winter. It is a pot of captured sunshine, opened on the darkest days. Perhaps its most vital role, however, is found not in the kitchen, but in the manor's infirmary, which is, in reality, less a dedicated building and more a collection of skills held by a local wise woman or a monk from a nearby abbey. Here, your honey is not food, but medicine. Its healing properties are considered almost miraculous. A nasty cut from a scythe or a burn from a kitchen fire is not washed with water, but often smeared with a thick layer of your honey. You don't know the scientific reasons, the antibacterial properties created by bee enzymes, but you have seen the results. Wounds treated with honey seem to get less angry, they weep less, and they heal cleaner than those left to fend for themselves. It is the original spoonful that helps the medicine go down. The herbal remedies of the day are often intensely bitter and unpleasant. A healer will grind up dried herbs, roots, and sometimes more questionable ingredients like powdered goat's liver, and mix the resulting powder with a generous dollop of honey to create a paste that is at least tolerable to swallow. A common and respected remedy for a chesty cough or a sore throat is a concoction called an oxymel, a strange-sounding mixture of honey and sharp vinegar, often infused with herbs like rosemary or thyme. You have tasted it yourself. It is a peculiar combination of sweet and sour that has a surprising way of calming a rasping cough on a cold night. Medical historians and folklorists still debate how much of honey's medicinal reputation was based on these genuine, observable results, and how much was tied to the prevailing medical philosophy of the age, the theory of the four humors. Was honey applied to a wound because people saw that it worked, an act of pure empirical evidence? Or was it prescribed because, as a substance considered hot and moist, it was believed to be the perfect substance to balance a patient's cold and dry ailment? Like so many things in your world, the line between practical success and theoretical belief is blurry. It works, and that is what matters. After the cook has claimed the lion's share for the Lord's table and the healer has taken a smaller pot for her remedies, you are left with your portion. It is a small pot, one that wouldn't fill a modern cereal bowl, but to you, it is a treasure. You carry it home to your own small cottage, where it represents health, flavor, and security all in one sticky, golden container. This is your true payment. When you dip a finger in and taste it, you taste the sun of the past summer, the scent of 1,000 flowers, and the faint, sad memory of the colony that gave its life to produce it. You will guard this pot more carefully than the Lord guards his castle. But the honey, for all its sweetness and healing power, is only half the story of your harvest. It is the immediate, visceral reward. The other treasure, sitting cool and solid in pottery bowls in your shed, represents a different kind of value, one tied to light, literacy, and the sacred. You return to the outbuilding and run your hand over the smooth, firm cakes of beeswax you rendered from the comb. They smell faintly of honey, but also of something cleaner, more resinous. This solid sunlight is, in many ways, even more precious than the liquid gold you delivered to the kitchen. To understand its worth, you only need to consider the alternative. For most people on the manor, light after sunset comes from a flickering fire or, if they are fortunate, a tallow candle. A tallow candle is made from rendered animal fat, and it is a foul thing. It sputters and spits, casts a greasy, guttering light, and fills a room with a thick, cloying black smoke that smells like you're roasting a rancid goat. By contrast, a candle made from your beeswax is an object of pure luxury. It burns with a bright, clean, steady flame. It does not smoke, and instead of a foul stench, it releases the subtle, holy perfume of honey and flowers. The difference is so profound that the price difference makes perfect sense. Beeswax is the light of kings, of lords, and most importantly, of God. The church is the greatest consumer of your beeswax. The local priest and the powerful monastery in the next valley have an insatiable need for it, because beeswax is the only material deemed worthy of being burned on the altar during Mass. This is not merely a matter of quality, it is a matter of deep theological symbolism. The wax, produced by what were believed to be virgin bees, was held to represent the pure, virginal flesh of Christ's mother, Mary. The wick inside the candle was seen as his soul, and the bright flame his divine nature, the light of the world. Therefore, your humble work in the apiary is directly linked to the most sacred mysteries of the faith. The cakes of wax you produce are not just a commodity, they are a key ingredient in worship. You will carry your best cakes of wax to the parish priest as part of your tithe, your 10% offering to the church. He will accept them with a gravity that he does not afford to offerings of grain or chickens. This is a special, holy product. Your wax will be melted down and mixed with wax from other beekeepers, then poured into molds to create the tall, elegant candles that will illuminate the Bible, the chalice, and the face of the priest during the holiest moments of the year. But the church is not its only user. The Lord's Reeve, the man who manages the manor's accounts, also has need of your wax. He uses it for his wax tablets. A wax tablet is a simple but ingenious piece of technology, a shallow wooden tray filled with a layer of darkened beeswax. Using a sharp metal or bone stylus, the Reeve can scratch notes into the wax, lists of rents owed, tallies of grain harvested, reminders of tasks to be done. When the notes are no longer needed, the tablet can be left near a fire for a moment until the wax softens, and then smoothed over, erasing the message completely. It is the most advanced erasable and reusable writing surface available, a medieval whiteboard that is completely hack-proof, unless the attacker is equipped with a pointy stick and a little patience. Small drops of your wax are also used to seal letters and documents. A blob of melted wax, stamped with the Lord's seal while still warm, is an unbreakable guarantee of authenticity. It ensures that a letter has not been tampered with and confirms the authority of the sender. Your wax helps to carry power and law across the land. Economic historians still debate the precise logistics of this beeswax trade. How much of a great monastery's vast demand for candles was met by the tithes of local beekeepers like you, and how much had to be purchased through organized, large-scale trade networks that stretched across the country? Is your contribution a mere drop in the ocean, or a vital part of the local spiritual economy? As you stack the finished, perfect cakes, you don't think of such grand questions. You feel the smooth, satisfying weight of them in your hands. You have essentially transformed summer flowers and bee labor into solid, fragrant light. It feels like a quiet and noble form of alchemy, and it is one that helps pay your rent and secure your place in the life of the manor, which is far more than the fellows trying to turn lead into gold can say. The seasons turn, the wax has been delivered to the priest, and the Lord's kitchens are well stocked with your honey. But there is one final, almost magical transformation left for your own small, precious share of the harvest. Not all of it will be used to sweeten porridge or to soothe a winter cough. A portion of your personal pot is destined for a higher, more spirited purpose. You are going to brew mead. Mead, the word itself feels ancient, tasting of sagas and fireside stories. It is the golden drink of heroes in the great epic poems, the nectar of the old gods. While the manor house might prize its imported French wine and the village men might spend their evenings drinking cloudy, weak ale at the tavern, mead holds a special place. It is a drink you create yourself, a direct transformation of summer sunshine into liquid warmth for the cold winter ahead. The process begins with a simplicity that beloads its potential. In a large iron cauldron over a low, carefully tended fire, you mix your honey with clean, cool water drawn from the manor's deepest well. The ratio is something you know by instinct, not by written recipe. More honey for a stronger, sweeter mead, less for a lighter, drier one. You stir the mixture, the must, as it is called, with a long wooden paddle, watching as the thick, golden honey dissolves into the water, creating a fragrant, cloudy liquid. You do not let it boil, for that would drive away the delicate ghosts of the flowers the bees visited. You just warm it enough for everything to marry together. Now comes the part that is true alchemy. You have no packets of dried yeast, no scientific understanding of microorganisms. You must rely on the wild, invisible spirits of fermentation that live in the air, on the skins of fruit, and even within the honey itself. You are not adding yeast. You are simply creating a sweet, watery welcome mat and hoping the right kind of guests show up for the party. To encourage these guests and to add a layer of flavor, you might drop in a handful of tart, foraged crabapples or a few sour sloes from the blackthorn bushes. This technically turns your brew into a melomel, a mead made with fruit. If you were to add spices, a precious clove or a piece of cinnamon obtained through trade, it would be a metheglin, a word that hints at its use as a medicine. Today, it is simply apples and honey. You pour the warm must into a large pottery jug, cover its mouth with a piece of clean linen to let it breathe without letting insects in, and place it in a cool, dark corner of your cottage. And now you wait. Making mead teaches you the deep, profound lesson that some things cannot be rushed. You cannot command the cask to bubble faster. It is the ultimate boss, and it is not accepting feedback at this time. After a few days, you see the first signs of life. A tiny bubble rises to the surface, then another. A soft, hissing sound begins, the sound of the wild yeast consuming the sugars and creating alcohol. Your concoction is alive. Historians and homebrewers still debate the reliability of fermenting with only wild yeast. How often did a medieval batch of mead turn out perfectly golden and delicious, and how often did it succumb to other airborne microbes, turning it into a sour honey vinegar or a brew with strange, unpleasant flavors? Was brewing mead a dependable craft, or more of a hopeful gamble every single time? Each time you listen to the gentle bubbling, you say a small, silent prayer that the good spirits found your offering first. Weeks pass. The furious bubbling slows to a gentle murmur, and then to an occasional, lazy blip. The cloudiness of the must begins to settle, leaving the liquid above clearer and more golden with each passing day. The time comes for the first, tentative taste. You dip a small wooden cup into the jug. The first sip is a moment of truth, when you discover if you have created a nectar fit for heroes or a sour concoction useful only for cleaning rusty tools. A smile spreads across your face. It is nectar. The sweetness of the honey is still there, but it is deeper now, balanced by a clean, warming fire from the alcohol and a faint, sharp tang from the crabapples. It is the taste of your apiary, of your orchard, of your patience. This is not a drink for selling or for paying rent. This is your reward. You will decant it into smaller jugs, seal them with cork and beeswax, and store them for the winter. This golden mead is for the celebration at the end of the harvest, for the birth of a new child in the village, or simply for sharing with a neighbor on a night when the wind howls outside and the fire burns low. It is your labor, transformed into joy. Your story, the story of the manor beekeeper, is not the only one being written in honey and wax. It is the most common, but there is another, quieter, and more sacred narrative running parallel to yours. So let us, for a time, shift our perspective. We have known changes. Now, you are no longer a tenant on a lord's land, paying your rent in sweetness and light. Now, you are a brother in the service of God, and your apiary sits within the high, peaceful walls of a Benedictine monastery. Your new name is Frater Melarius, the brother beekeeper. Your day is not governed by the rising and setting of the sun alone, but by the crisp, clear ringing of bells that call you and your brothers to prayer 7 times a day. Your work in the apiary, nestled in a sun-drenched corner of the hortus, the monastery's sprawling kitchen and medicinal garden, is not a chore to be fitted in around other duties. It is your sacred office, your primary form of worship. You live by the Benedictine motto, laborare est orare. To work is to pray. And your prayer is the hum of bees. Here, the symbolism you understood on the manor is deepened into profound theology. The hive is not just like a kingdom. It is a direct model of the monastery itself. You see the thousands of bees working in perfect, selfless harmony for the good of the community, and you see a reflection of your own brothers. You see their tireless industry, their devotion to a single purpose, and you are inspired in your own work. The king bee is a symbol of your abbot, the single guiding authority. The chastity of the worker bees is a constant, buzzing reminder of your own vow of celibacy. Before you work with the hives, you might say a short prayer to Saint Ambrose, the patron saint of beekeepers. You know the story well. As an infant, a swarm of bees settled on Ambrose's face and, without harming him, left a single drop of honey on his lips. This was seen as a divine sign of his future eloquence, his honeyed words that would sway the hearts of men and emperors. You see your bees as a living connection to that tradition, and you see their honey not just as a sweetener, but as a physical manifestation of divine wisdom. Unlike your counterpart on the manor, you are literate. In the monastery's library, the scriptorium, you have access to knowledge that is a locked treasure to the outside world. In the evenings, by the clean light of a beeswax candle that you yourself helped create, you can read the ancients. You can study the writings of the Roman poet Virgil, who wrote of bees in his Georgics. You can read the works of Aristotle and Pliny the Elder, learning their theories on the generation and habits of bees. You might read that Virgil believed a loud noise could make a swarm settle, and you might recall trying it once by chanting a psalm particularly loudly near a swarm, only to find the bees thoroughly unimpressed. You learn to weigh the wisdom of the respected ancients against the truth of your own careful observations. Within the cloistered walls, the conversations you have about your bees are of a different nature. Learned brothers will stop by the apiary and still debate the finer points of bee theology. Do bees possess a kind of soul, however small? Since they produce the pure wax essential for the sacrament of the Mass, are they not in some way holier than other beasts of the field? Is their perfect, selfless society not irrefutable proof of God's hand in even the smallest and most humble of His creations? These are the questions that occupy your mind as you work. The monastery's need for your products is immense. The great abbey church requires countless candles, not only for the main altar but for every side chapel and saint's day. The brothers in the scriptorium need them to continue their work of copying manuscripts long after the sun has set. The honey is used in the infirmary, and great quantities are brewed into the finest mead, served to visiting bishops and nobles. Your apiary is a vital engine for the monastery's spiritual and practical self-sufficiency. The lord of the manor wants honey for his roast. Your abbot wants wax for the glory of God. The bees, you suspect, do not care either way. They just want more clover. It is a thought that keeps you, and your work, deeply and wonderfully humble. The quiet, ordered world of the monastery, with its books and its bells, and return to you. We return to the manor, to the world of muddy paths and passed down wisdom, where your relationship with your bees is governed less by theology and more by a rich and complex tapestry of superstition. Here, bees are not just symbols of virtue or producers of goods. They are members of the family, and they must be treated as such, with all the respect and consideration that implies. This belief system is built on a single, core idea. The bees are deeply connected to the fortunes of your household, and they are sensitive. They need to be kept informed of all important family matters. This tradition, the most important in all of beekeeping folklore, is known as telling the bees. Should a death occur in your family, especially the death of the master of the house, your duties as beekeeper take on a solemn urgency. Before the funeral, you must go to the apiary. You approach the hives not with a boisterous clang of tanging, but with a quiet, somber heart. You select a piece of black cloth, a scrap of mourning crepe, and you tie it to a stick which you then place by the entrance of each skep. Then, you lean in close and you whisper the news. You might hum or chant it in a low, sorrowful tone. The master is gone, you might murmur. He has left us, little bees, he will not return. You must inform them of their loss, because if you do not, it is believed the bees will take offense at the slight. They will either dwindle and die in their hive, or they will abandon it completely, flying off in a great swarm, never to be seen again. After telling them the news, you must also offer them a share of the funeral food, a small piece of the bread and a taste of the ale, to show that they are still part of the family. This intimate connection extends to happy occasions as well. When a wedding is to take place, the bees must be told. A piece of the bride's white ribbon might be used to decorate the hives, and an invitation whispered into the entrance. A small piece of the wedding cake will be left for them, to ensure their blessing on the union, bringing luck and fertility to the new couple. You whisper all the family gossip to them. They likely know more about your neighbor's squabbles and the Lord's indigestion than anyone else. You figure that well-informed bees are happy bees. The superstitions also govern how bees are exchanged. There is a powerful and widely held belief that you must never, ever buy a hive of bees with coin. Bees that have been paid for with money are said to be unlucky. The colony will not thrive. So instead, bees must be bartered for. The negotiation to trade for a hive is a delicate dance. It has all the gravity of a royal marriage treaty, but it's about whether a strong skep is worth one healthy piglet, or 2 sacks of barley, or a promise of 5 days' labor during the grain harvest. This system of trade keeps the exchange within a world of mutual obligation and respect, rather than cold, impersonal commerce. Folklorists and anthropologists still debate the deep origins of the custom of telling the bees. Is it a faint, lingering echo of ancient pagan beliefs, a time when bees were seen as mystical creatures, messengers who could travel between the world of the living and the realm of the spirits? Or is it a more practical psychological custom, a way of formalizing the grieving process and reinforcing the continuity of the household during a time of great trauma and change? By treating the bees as a constant, informed part of the family itself feels more stable. You don't trouble yourself with these questions. You simply know what must be done. You know that you must not quarrel or use foul language near the hives, lest you sour the honey. You know that if a bee flies into your cottage, it means a visitor is on the way. And you know that when you have a trouble weighing on your heart, you can go to the quiet bee garth, lean against a skep, and whisper your worries into the hum. They are, without a doubt, the best listeners in your entire household. They keep your secrets, guard your family's luck, and ask for nothing in return but flowers, and to be kept in the loop. Word, because you have listened to them, and because you have watched them all year, you know when the time has come for the final task. The year has turned. The last of the ivy blossoms have withered, the air has a permanent, sharp chill, and the bees' flights have become short, rare, and desperate. The great roar of summer has faded to a low, internal hum. Winter is no longer a distant threat. It is a presence waiting at the edge of the fields. Your work as a proactive guardian is over for the year. Now, your final duty is to be a tender of their long sleep. You walk the apiary one last time, making the final assessment. You gently heft the hives that survived the harvest, the driven colony that you saved, and the lighter ones you spared. You are checking their weight one last time, hoping they have stored enough honey from the late-season flowers to see them through to the spring. There is nothing more you can do to help them gather food. All you can do now is protect what they have. Your first line of defense is against the damp and the cold. For each skep, you fashion a small, conical hat of thatched straw. These hacks, as they are called, sit atop the domes of the skeps like little pointed caps, providing an extra layer of insulation and, more importantly, helping the driving rain and heavy snow to slide off instead of seeping into the straw walls. You ensure each skep is raised slightly off the damp ground on its stand of flat stones, protecting its bottom from rot and chilling moisture. You move the most vulnerable hives into the deep shelter of the stone bee bowls, their permanent, solid defense against the wind. Next, you must secure the entrances. You take small plugs of clay and wood and narrow the openings of each hive, leaving a hole just large enough for a single bee to pass through. This is not for warmth, but for defense. A small entrance prevents opportunistic field mice from slipping inside to find a warm, food-filled winter nest, and it helps the bee cluster defend itself from any other intruders. For any hive that feels worryingly light, you perform one last act of care. You provide a small piece of bee candy, honey that has been carefully boiled and cooled into a hard, solid sweet. Unlike liquid honey, this candy will not add excess moisture to the hive, providing a vital emergency ration for the coldest months without risking disease. Archaeologists and historians still debate the design and prevalence of dedicated wintering sheds. Some manors may have had special bee houses, dark, quiet buildings where the skeps could be stored in close quarters through the winter. But these were a double-edged sword. While offering protection from the elements, they could also allow any sickness to spread rapidly from one colony to the next. You rely on your proven methods: good placement, dry footing, and a warm hat for each hive. Finally, the work is done. You stand back and survey your apiary. The row of skeps, each wearing its jaunty straw hat, looks quiet and peaceful. The frantic energy of summer is a distant memory. The profound sadness of the harvest has given way to a quiet, hopeful stillness. There is nothing more you can do now but wait and trust in the bees' incredible resilience. You have done your part. Their fate now rests with the severity of the coming winter and the strength of the tiny, beating heart of their winter cluster. You turn and walk away, leaving the bee garth to its long, silent slumber. And now, as the beekeeper's work for the year is finally done, our own journey together comes to a gentle close. The story of the apiary fades, its sharp details softening as the first snows of winter begin to drift down from a gray, woolen sky. Imagine those soft flakes falling silently, blanketing the manor, the fields, and the quiet, sleeping hives. Each skep, with its pointed straw hat, slowly becomes a soft, white mound, the world outside becoming hushed and still. All the frantic activity of the sunlit months has resolved into this deep and profound rest. The bees are clustered deep inside, a single, warm, dreaming heart, waiting for the sun to return. Their time of labor is over, and now is their time of sleep. And so it is for you. There are no more tasks to complete, no more enemies to watch for. There is only the quiet invitation of the darkness, the soft weight of your own blanket, and the gentle, rhythmic hum of your own slow breathing. Let the last of your thoughts drift away now, like snowflakes melting into the ground. There is nothing left to do but rest.